Freaking out, man.
You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What do all men in power want? More power.
My name is Luca Zanna. I was an Italian by birth, and I became an American by choice. Our lives and freedoms are in danger. This is not a drill. If you're listening to this broadcasting, you are the resistance.
All systems go.
Welcome to Love, Guns, and Freedom.
We're not afraid.
Here we go, another Sunday, another show. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna on KTOX 1340 AM and on UnitedStates.fm network. Today is an exciting show. Every show I try to bring you facts, news, and more important, as I said, this show, for me, it is not just something because I have nothing better to do. The fact that I'm here and I'm trying to bring you this type of topics, there is really no reason for me to do it, but because I really care about this country. It is a part of my oath as a new American to try to defend this republic against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I'm telling you, sometimes we touch topics that can be very controversial. Sometimes also, even just talking about the topics I bring on the air can be a dangerous game. And I'm not here trying to make a big drama, but it is. Today I want to talk about something that is very important. I still hear, of course, we are the land of the free, home of the brave. My friends, unfortunately, we are not anymore the land of the free, home of the brave. If you look at the communist planks and you look at the Communist Manifesto, we're pretty much like 1 minute before midnight to the complete communist takeover of this country. And somebody, from mostly Democrats, but even some neocons, they say, hey, why don't you go back where you're from? Guess what? First of all, I burned my Italian passport. This is my country. And my duty as American is not to run away, is not to escape, but to stand up and fight back to take back this republic. So this is my answer. Stop, send me an email. If you don't like it here, go back to Italy. Guess what? Too bad. You stuck with me. My Italian passport was burned, and I'm no more an Italian, and I'm an American, and I took an oath, and I will fulfill my oath. Today, pretty much, I want to make this case, showing with evidence and facts, and also with the help of a special guest that now I will announce very soon, that unfortunately America has become a communist nation. Maybe you don't see still the tanks rolling on the street, but pretty soon with Jade Helm, we are going to see him. Maybe people, they are not disappearing yet in mass in the middle of the night, but unfortunately we have all the different prepositioning of assets with the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act, the Military Commission Act. We are very close to this type of scenario. I hope we can stop it. That's why we got to talk about it. We got to inform each other. Now, before I start to introduce my guest, that I will tell you in a few seconds, I want to thank everybody of you listeners who are pretty much sharing the show, helping me out to promote the show, and more important, also helping me out with tips and ideas how to find new great guests. I'm just a regular guy. As I said, this is not my main mission in life. I even didn't want to do this show. I've been almost by accident or act of God, I've been here. So this is not my career, but I take this as a commitment to try to help to bring facts and truth to help each other in learning what's going on. So I wanted to thank, first of all, a lady from Pennsylvania that she's been very helpful in finding guests and also to promote the show. Cheryl Russell from Pennsylvania. Thank you very much, and thank everybody of you out there that is helping me out and putting up with my accent and everything else. Now, let's talk about a special guest, because this is, for me, probably it's an honor to have somebody that is coming from another country, a country where communism really has been living on her skin. She's seen on first hand how communists can be brutal on the individual, on freedoms, on the basic things today we don't understand, what we have, really. So, and more important, she's a lady that she has a great also cultural depth. She's a 4 college degrees in the United States, a Bachelor of Arts in German, and Bachelor in, it's amazing. Let me just introduce her, and she will talk more about herself. Her name is Dr. Ileana Johnson. Dr. Johnson, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, Gianluca.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, and thank you for taking the time to be on my humble show. I really appreciate it. And, we are both new Americans. I call myself a new American. I wasn't born here. You weren't born here either. Can you give us a little bit about your background, exactly where you were born, where you were from, and more important, when you came to America?
Yes, I was born in Romania, in the town of Ploiești, which was the heaviest bombing raid during World War II. The Allies bombed it because we were allied with the Germans. I came to the United States in 1978, legally, of course, and I immediately proceeded to become an American citizen. Like you, I burned my Romanian passport because I didn't want to be associated with communism anymore. And we had over 40 years of communism. And I started educating myself in this country, and I became a college professor, and I taught for 30 years.
Wow.
I have retired from that profession, and by the grace of God, I started writing, and my articles and books have become successful. And the next step was being on radio, because I felt that as an American by choice, it was my duty to educate my fellow countrymen to the evils of communism. Why would I do that? Because as a college professor, I have seen 30 years of indoctrination by college professors of our young Americans into the wonders of communism. And of course, these young men and women believe that fully. Perfect. And so that's why I am now here on your show.
Perfect. Thank you. And I would like to ask you exactly how old you were when you left Romania to come to America. How old you were at the time?
I was about 19 and a half, almost 20 years old.
Wow.
Just old enough that I had taken 2 years of college in Romania.
Wow, so you were pretty much in, you could understand everything. You were a grown-up woman already. You've seen
absolutely.
You've seen on first-hand the brutality, exactly what is the reality of communism or living under real communism, because you weren't living in Romania of today, that I think has changed a lot. I've never been there, but you can tell me now the difference. But the point at the time was under the full power of Mr. Ceausescu, right?
Correct, it was.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, my daddy died a few months before Ceausescu was executed on Christmas 1989.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry to hear that. Listen, this is the point of the show, listeners. This is not something to entertain you or to make you fuzzy. You can get a bag of popcorn and enjoy. This is real life. And more important, I would like to address this to all the people that have been brainwashed, and maybe you have still a little bit of decency or brain to understand what's going on here. Just because you think it's cool to wear a Mao Zedong t-shirt or to have a little bit of hat like Che Guevara, wake up, idiots, wake up. How many millions of people died under communism, Mrs. Johnson? I mean, I'm sure you have an idea. In my book, I have more than 150 million people died just this century under communism. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree. There are over 100 million people who were victims of communism, yes.
And the point is this, let's start from the philosophical point of view, because people think, oh, it's cool. Even these, I see sometimes these Hollywood actors that they have millions of dollars in their bank account and they profess to be communist or socialist or some sort. This is a bunch of hypocrisy. First of all, why communism is pretty much the worst thing could happen to an individual? Because you're a professor, I can articulate my way, but tell me why it's so dangerous to a human being, to a free human being, why communism is death? I mean, it's our moral, physical, and psychological death. I call it, it's a moral castration, the communism. Why is so bad for a human being?
It really is, because it deprives a human being of the desire to really be productive, of work, of being humane to one another, of creating things, of being an individual, of being free. You live constantly under fear of what you're going to say, and it's not something that we take here lightly, political correctness. If you say something off the cuff, even to your relatives or your next door neighbor, you're going to be reported. It's an entire police state. You live under constant fear, under constant deprivation, lack of food, lack of water, lack of basic necessities, lack of even toilet paper like in Venezuela right now, lack of soap, lack of things that you as Americans take for granted. When you walk into a grocery store or a pharmacy, you expect to find the shelves fully stocked, but not so under communism. Why? Because it's a centralized economy run by a bunch of uneducated tyrants who, most of whom have never seen the doors of a college, most of whom have never even graduated from high school. And these people actually make 5-year plans of economic development for the entire population when they have no idea what they're doing. And there was a saying under communism, we pretend to work and they pretend to pay us. So there's no incentive to do anything. You become a dependent slave robot to the communist elites who live in the lap of luxury while the rest of the population starves. And I am not exaggerating. I remember as a child, 5, 6 years old, being sent to the store and to buy bread and having to wait in line for hours. And oftentimes I'd get to the front of the line and they would run out of bread. Or I would go with my mom every day and stand in line, and each of us would stand in a different line just so we could have a meal for that evening. I came back from school every day. Nobody fed us 2 meals a day in school or bussed us. I came home and there was nothing to eat. I would have to wait until my mom got home from work, hoping that she would bring something that could be cooked so we could have supper.
Exactly. And this is,
It's a culture of worse than welfare dependency. It's a culture of enslavement of the human spirit.
And also, tell me if you agree with my statement. It is pretty much the negation of the individual. Besides these, of course, very important practical things that the free market allows you to have, from the basic, from toilet to food and prices that pretty much created by free market. Communism is a failure in this economic system, but also morally and also as spiritually, it's the negation of the individual. That's why it's so important. Let me explain something. I want to be sure about something. We can have things we agree to disagree. That's fine. But if you're a communist, you are my enemy. And I tell you right now, I am your worst enemy. And I tell you why. People say, oh, you don't agree to disagree. Guess what? No, I do not agree to disagree on something that you want to use the coercion of the government to make me a slave. And I will defend myself in every way I can. That's why I draw the line. When I see communist little punks on the streets, first of all, I try to avoid them. But the point is, these people, not just because now they don't have a gun in their hand, they are for me the enemies. Because the moment that they really are so brainwashed and they will be part of this takeover, they will be the people that they will try to put us in the camps. They will the people, as you said, part of this central committee in your area, they pretty much will report you to the local Stasi, and they'll deprive you of your freedom, of your property. That's why where I draw a line, I don't make some sort of a dramatic statement. I say, again, if you're a communist, you're my worst enemy, and I will be your worst enemy. And this is not about different political differences. This is about my survival for my freedom and for the next generation of us. That's why it's so important, Professor Johnson. Communism for me is pretty much saying that the state is the new God. And we must submit to the state. We have no more rights as individuals. We have no more property rights, correct? You didn't own a house, did you?
No, we did own a house before the communists came to power, but they confiscated everything and they moved us by force into these tiny concrete block apartments. Heck. And if they couldn't build them fast enough, then they moved other families in our house with us until the apartments were ready, and we had to share a bathroom, we had to share a kitchen, and it was very, very crowded. They confiscated everything we owned. It was called social engineering, and it is going to happen, and it is happening to a certain degree in this country. We were told that the president and his wife were our mother and father, that our biological parents were not our parents. They were just entrusted to be our caretakers, but they were our parents, and it was just unbelievable, and it is happening in this country already to a degree. This cult of personality is going on already in this country.
Now, I would like to start to make the case because people still believe, oh, you are just exaggerating. America is still America. After all, you're on the air, you're free to talk. And I want to make a case with facts. First of all, our economic system is being transformed, and not just under Obama. Guys, I'm not here a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I bash both parties. Both parties, they're working for these globalists. First of all, let's look at the creation of these communists. Because in Bolshevik, during the Bolshevik Revolution, I'm sure you are aware, the communist revolution, it could not happen or could not survive if it did not have the help of the international bankers from New York and from London. So there is a plan behind. Communism, it wasn't just created by a filthy pig called Karl Marx that he could even wash his hair and he had nothing better to do than write a book. It was funded by the bankers. And why? Because the idea of the elite is to destroy the middle class, is to destroy the competition. What government does, what the communist does, it destroys everybody, but it leaves on top the elite. For example, I'm sure like even in Romania, like in Russia, or like in China, in Russia there is the Politburo. Everybody's broke, everybody's hungry, but the elite class of the politicians in the Politburo, they have everything. They have private cars, they have apartments, they have jets. Am I right or wrong?
It's absolutely right. There was no middle class. As a matter of fact, I just got back from Romania, and I went on a trip to look at this medieval fortress that was built in the 14th century. And when I got there, I was absolutely shocked because it had served during the entire communist regime as a prison. And over 4,000 people have been kind of cycled through this just one tiny prison. And there were hundreds and thousands of such prisons on the territory of Romania. And they put in this prison anybody from a general to a peasant who had a little bit of land, and of course the emphasis was what we call now the white privilege. In other words, they must have stolen this land from somebody, and therefore it must be confiscated by the Communist Party. And these people were kept in such horrid conditions in the basement in 2 feet of water, without sunlight, and of course a lot of them have died, and a lot of them were executed in the courtyard or they were hanged. And they have done nothing other than being entrepreneurs or having said something that politically disagreed with the regime.
I'm here right now on your website, and I invite everybody to see with your own eyes. Go to, please. I will post, by the way, if you go to today's page on lovegansfreedom.com, on today's page of today's show, I will post a permanent link of Professor Ileana Johnson. And the website is called ileanajohnson.com. And I'll spell it for you, ILEANA Johnson.com. And there is a blog, of course, and there are photos of this nightmare prison, a concentration camp, whatever you want to call it. People die. I can feel the pain and the fear. I mean, this is so sad. Think about it. So every kid out there that on the street in front of the university, play around, trying to be the next Che Guevara, or you got your leader hat like Mao Zedong, or you got your leader Communist Manifesto, wake up, idiots, because you never really felt and tasted this type of evil. And if you really enjoy evil, then guess what? You deserve to be smashed. Because I will not tolerate, and I tell you something, I'm a very peaceful man, Ileana. I do not advocate violence, but I tell you, I draw a line. I draw a line where this country and myself and my family, we must draw, in my opinion. When there is somebody trying to harm you, is trying to steal what you've done, what you created, think about yourself. You just tell me, I can envision you, young woman, young girl, you have your family home, your father worked so hard to put it together, and now the thugs, they come there just because they got guns. They pretty much can tell you everybody's out, and now this is ours, belongs to the state. This is something that cannot happen unless they take all your guns. And this is part of the model. You ever watched the movie Dr. Zhivago from I think it was the 50s? Dr. Zhivago?
Yes, I have.
I mean, that's for me. I can envision that. Is this something that far from reality? That video, that movie?
That's exactly how it happened
Yeah.
in many places around Eastern Europe. Yes, and as a matter of fact, they send Bolsheviks, apparatchiks from Moscow to train the future Bolsheviks in all these other satellite Eastern European countries so that they would know how to treat the population, how to frighten them, how to make them obey to their rules, and if they objected, to shoot them on sight. And the first communist president of Romania, I found quotes of him saying, well, we're going to confiscate their land, we're going to confiscate their equipment, and maybe pay them scrap metal value, and if they object at all, shoot them on sight.
Exactly, and that's why every regime, doesn't matter if it's on the right. By the way, there's no really difference, because when people think, oh, the Nazis, they are right. No, it's National Socialist Party of workers, okay? So they all pretty much the same idea of centralized government and redistribution and control from the government. So even the Nazi, they are not different from the communist, okay? It's still a National Socialist Party. The idea is the same. It's a regime. It's the government as the new god, as a centralized government, and the completely annihilation of the individual. So my point is this one. The first thing they want, these dictators, this system, tyrannical systems, they want to have a monopoly of power. That's why they work so hard on confiscating or legislating or registering. Of course, all starts with registration, all guns from the civilians' hands. That's why it's so important. I say, guys, I do not have a rifle to go hunt. I don't even like to hunt. The rifle for me is the last line of defense to defend my freedom. That's why we must understand this concept. That's why I see now in America what's happening, not just with Obama, but the last 30 years. They try to take our guns because the planners behind, they know that we still have a big body of our population, it's armed. And they cannot pull the stuff they did in Romania or Russia that easy yet. That's why it's so important we get educated on this matter. Now, I want to start to make this case. Before we go into this proving with facts that the different part of the communist planks, it's already here in the USA. And this is not just with Obama, I started before. I would like to ask you something. In Romania, when this takeover of the communist regime, how work with the guns? I mean, did you have a gun to go hunt, or did you have a gun as a right, like in America? How did it work? Did you have a Second Amendment?
Yes, no, we didn't have a Second Amendment, but people had guns. We were under a monarchy, and as the communists started coming to power, and they did things in the beginning gradually and presented it as doing it for the good of the people. They confiscated this, they confiscated that. Then they took guns because they said, well, you no longer need guns, the war is over, you don't need to hunt because we will provide food for you. And so nobody at some point had any guns whatsoever. So because of that reason, they were kept under communist totalitarian dictatorship for over 40 years. And they did not escape that until the army, which was armed to the teeth, joined them to overthrow this dictator named Ceausescu and his wife, who was also heavily involved in politics and this just regime of just utter repression of the human spirit.
So that's my point, guys. This is exactly the point. If you go just look around, look how many people died just this century under communism. And this is not just in China. Of course, we have the biggest number, over 70 million people at least. And then we have, of course, Vietnam, Cambodia. I mean, we have a different part of Eastern Europe. I mean, this is
Ukraine.
Ukraine, of course. I mean, this is so serious. This is why this is not cool. It's not Cuba. I mean, Cuba, there are people still in the jails, for God's sake. They're still suffering, I mean, this is a real human drama. This is not something that, I hate when I see these Hollywood actors acting like they are friends with these dictators, like with this, I know that they were journalists or they were different actors. They were trying to almost make look like going to Fidel Castro. It was a great hip thing to do. I mean, this person put thousands of people in concentration camps or killed them on the spot. Okay.
Well, as a matter of fact, the journalists and the actors and professors, they were the first ones to be put in jail in concentration camps when the communists took over. They just used them at first as useful idiots, and then they put them in jails and killed as many as possible, except those, of course, who pretended to be communists just so they could live.
Exactly. Now, that's my point. It's up to you guys. If I say the first weapon we must have is information and have something between our ears. Okay, we must have brain. We must think. Let's not get let's try to avoid to fall into this trap to follow the media and the indoctrination. Let's use our brain. Let's study history. That's the most important thing. Socialism is just a different type of milder version of what's coming next, communism. Socialism, maybe you still don't have the all full gun in your face, but pretty much government controls every aspect of private businesses and is a centralized government. Now, what do you think where we are right now in America, especially after the last 6 years with Mr. Obama? How close are we to be? We already are a socialist country. So, because I tell you, this is for me happened since the 30s, since the creation of the Social Security and the different type of plans under the FDR, and I'll tell you in a little bit. But where do you think we are right now? How close are we to be communism?
I think we're about 80 to 85% socialist. What stands between us and full communism would be nationalization of all the means of production of everybody's private industry and private businesses and property, and confiscation of guns. But everything else is socialist, really. And of course, you'll have to destruct the middle class completely, and we're already pretty much on our way in that direction.
Yeah, and this is exactly the point. First of all, let's examine. There is the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. Okay, I mean, something that everybody I invite to find out and learn about it. There are 10 plans. And Karl Marx pretty much and Friedrich Engels wrote a book, the Communist Manifesto, and they have an agenda. And this agenda you can see now in our life. For example, let's start from something I think very important, abolition of property. And yes, technically you say we can still have a property, but not really if you think about it. Now, the moment that we do not pay our property taxes, something that really happened just the last 100 years, in many states at least, we are pretty much now just rental. I mean, we are renting from the government. The moment that we don't pay the property tax, that by the way can go up any way they want pretty much, we lose everything. So this idea of ownership, of property ownership, is pretty much surreal. What do you think about that? This is the first plank, abolition of property.
Well, if you think about it, we had elements of confiscation of property when under eminent domain, when certain people lose their homes or their farms for a certain sum of money that they have to accept payment from the government, and then the land is being sold to private individuals for development. Well, eminent domain was started in order to help the public goods in a sense that they needed to build roads, but not to confiscate the property just so they could sell it for a much higher price to somebody else for development, while you put people off their land.
Exactly. And that, by the way, was also backed by the Supreme Court, if I remember. It was a few years ago, correct? I think it was on the East Coast. Yes, I remember that.
Yes, it was.
Second plank, a heavy progressive or graduated income tax. I mean, let's not forget that before 1913, we didn't have an income tax. This is something, the new system happened just the last 100 years, created by the international bankers. And the idea is pretty much completely against our Constitution. And now our Constitution visualizes the tax. So the income tax bring us back to the time almost of the Middle Ages, where you go out and you go hunt and you come back from the forest of the Lord. And if you got 2 rabbits, one go to the Lord and one goes to you. The difference now that pretty much this income tax, it is just for us middle class on personal income, because the big corporations pretty much they are not paying anything almost. And more important now, you know that this is the way to control the competition. So the income tax was part of the plank of the Communist Manifesto. What do you think about this now in America the last 100 years?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. The heavy burden in terms of percentage is on the middle class. It's true that in terms of total sum, the upper income class pays more collectively, but the percentage burden falls on the middle class. And of course, the so-called poor class, they pay no income tax. On the contrary, they receive earned income tax credit. And now we have a new class of people. We have all the illegal aliens who are now receiving earned income credit under the guise of helping them or encouraging them to pay income taxes under TIIN. And, well, very few of them are actually paying taxes other than sales tax, but they are certainly receiving $4.2 billion a year in earned income tax credit. Where does that come from? It comes from us, the middle class taxpayers. And if you look at the corporations, a lot of them have moved elsewhere just if the heavy corporate taxation in this country. And all the billionaires that are telling us to pay more taxes, they're not paying their so-called fair share because they're not paying the same percentage. For example, Mr. I don't know, I don't want to single out any billionaire, but they pay 10, 11, 12, 15% of their income, whereas the middle class, depending on what category you are, pays 39% of their income in taxes. Is that fair? Of course not.
And also another thing, let's not forget there are corporations out there that pretty much that's why Mussolini called fascism the union between government and the corporation. It's called corporatism. At that point, there are some exempt. For example, General Electric, a couple of years ago, got $50 billion, no income tax, nothing. I mean, the point is corporate tax, no income tax, I'm talking about corporate tax. There are situations that you will see now how all this is pretty much under the government decides who's going to pay and how much. Okay, the law is not for everybody. But more important, let's not forget, the idea that of this income tax as a personal income tax, this is completely new to this country. Before 1913 didn't exist. And now we have a central bank. The Federal Reserve is as federal as the Federal Express. And this bank took the same banks that pretty much financed the Bolshevik Revolution and financed and funded Karl Marx, now are the same bankers that they pretty much pushed and for the creation of this central bank called Federal Reserve. So we have pretty much this heavy progressive income tax. And when I'm talking about the millionaires, I'm not talking about the real people. The real people who do not pay any taxes, they are the real trillionaires. I'm not talking about somebody making $1 million for a year. That's nothing. That's now it's middle class maybe. I'm talking about maybe higher middle class. But the point is the real people who do not pay a dime, they are the Rockefellers, the JP Morgan, people that pretty much they don't even have any personal income. They're all foundations, all mega corporations, and they don't pay anything. And there are people behind this. Now, talking about centralization, very important, abolition of all rights of inheritance. I mean, when you were in Romania, if you had a home your father couldn't leave it to you, it was going back to the state, correct?
That's correct. After the communists took over, yes. Prior to that, yes, you could inherit the property. Of course, once communism is gone, which, by the way, it's now forbidden to have the Communist Party in existence, but that doesn't mean that the former communists are not in charge of the other parties. They're still in charge and power.
Yeah.
But now you can reclaim your property. There's a lengthy process through courts, but you can reclaim your property. And if you have to start paying taxes on that property, even retroactively, and a lot of times you don't have that kind of money to repair this property that has been so destroyed, during 40 years or however many years they've had it under control. So, yes, now you have it back, but how much is it worth, and do you have the money to reestablish it to its former glory? And oftentimes you don't, and the buildings are literally rotting everywhere.
And exactly now what I'm talking about in America, we have the federal estate tax, and they're coming back to these pretty much it's called like the death tax, So you already been paying taxes all your life, you die, you want to leave something to your son or to your family, and you have to pay another tax. And they may go back, and the sky is the limit. Today they can say 10%, they can say 50%. I don't know exactly today how much it is, but guess what? They're coming back. I know that they're trying to push it back, right? I mean, this is something that especially the Democratic Party wants so bad. This inheritance tax. I mean, this is so sad, so wrong. So it's happening in America too. This is pretty much another part. Now, centralization of all means of communications and transportation in the hands of the state.
You forgot about the confiscation of property.
Oh, yeah, please go ahead. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, confiscation of property. As I said, if the government decided under communism to label you as a person of interest and they would put you in jail to get rid of you, everything that you own would be confiscated by the communist government and distributed among the communist apparatchiks at the top. They were very, very wealthy, by the way, in gold, jewelry, paintings, buildings, land, etc., and money in Swiss banks. Well, is this happening in our country? Yes, it is. We have government seizures or tax liens, Public Law 99-570, which was passed in 1986. We have private land can be given to the Department of Urban Development, according to Executive Order 11490, or if so-called terrorists, if they label you a terrorist and they imprison you because you speak out against the government, that's the 1997 bill, that means they confiscate your property, or we have the IRS confiscation of property without due process, and they do take advantage of that sometimes. And we have asset forfeiture laws that the DEA does, or the IRS, or the ATF, et cetera, depending how they're going to label you. And now with the Patriot Act, I'm sure they can label you anything they want.
Yes, I'm so glad you spelled it out.
You.
Great explanation. I'm so glad. I was going to bring it up. Perfect. You articulated very well. And let's not forget, beside the Patriot Act, because I want to give both sides the same type of treatment. They are both working for the same masters to destroy this republic. Bush gave us the Patriot Act with Congress, and Obama gave us the special gift. It's called the National Defense Authorization Act, that pretty much is like 3 deep layer into hell. Now, any one of us, we have no more right of due process. We can pretty much indefinitely detain without access to a judge, jury, and a trial just because suspected to be a terrorist. As you were saying now, the definition of terrorism pretty much can be switching from the people with the beard and the turban. Now they are the patriots, the constitutionalists, people who believe in freedom. If you believe in Christianity or anything that the government doesn't like, pretty much, okay? So at least this government. So this is so important. Please, people, wake up. If people you say cannot happen here, the National Defense Authorization Act is not a conspiracy. The Patriot Act is not a conspiracy. The IRS is not a conspiracy. So check it out. We are right now. Was exactly the part of the Communist Manifesto that is called the confiscation, the fourth plank, confiscation of the property of all immigrants and rebels. Okay, perfect. Now, fifth plank, centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of a national bank with state capital and exclusive monopoly. Okay, that's called the Federal Reserve Bank 1913. Even this bank is privately owned, okay, but still there is the monopoly, and they pretty much dictate the interest rates and everything, and they can create money out of thin air. I was in Romania. Did you have a central bank?
Of course, yes. It was the central bank of the Communist Party. They ran everything, the Communist Party. They ran education, banking, industry, agriculture, the food supply, you name it, they ran it. So, yes, they had a central bank, and you couldn't get credit, and if you did, it was sky high, and people generally did not borrow money. If they didn't have money to buy something, they just saved it until they had enough money. But generally, there was not enough stuff to be bought on the market. We couldn't even find food. We couldn't find medication. We couldn't find qualified medical help or good hospital. Nothing. So, we were pretty much controlled from every direction you can imagine, including transportation, by the way.
Exactly.
We had to ride on their trains, on their buses, rickety buses. Most people didn't have cars. You either walked. So we kind of lived within a certain radius of the town or the village where we were born, maybe going within 60-mile radius and never further than that. Why? We couldn't afford it, and also we were not allowed, or we wouldn't get passports to go across the border. Nobody could even dream of ever crossing the border going to another country.
That sounds more and more like Agenda 21. By the way, I know you wrote an excellent book that I was going to order today, because the idea is to contain the slaves in that specific area, no means of of transportations, because slaves, they are not allowed to move, to be free to go around with a car. Are you kidding me? That's why the Agenda 21 plan is pretty much the same, to create this micro village where we all live on top of each other and government can control us better. That's pretty much the idea. And this is part also of the sixth plank, centralization of the means of communications and transportations in the hands of the state. And people say, oh, this cannot happen in America. Guess what? We got the Federal Radio Commission 1927, we got the Federal Communications Commission 1984, we have the Air Commerce Act of 1926, we have all the way down now Interstate Commerce Commission that given the authority by Congress to regulate trucking and carriers on inland waterways, and much more. The Department of Transportation, it is all gradually now being controlled by the government. The transportation too. And now the Agenda 21, they didn't start today. We go back to the Bush father, the one that signed this international agreement. Pretty much that's the model where we all live. Tell us a little bit about your book about Agenda 21. I think you did a great job there.
Well, talking about the centralization of communication and transportation,
yes,
that is part of Agenda 21, and it didn't really started with Bush number one in 1992 when he actually signed us onto Agenda 21, and everybody can Google this document. It's a 40-chapter document. It actually, the work has been in plan probably since the turn of the last century.
Yes.
So he just kind of sealed it in stone, so to speak, but
You're right.
We did not ratify it through the Senate. So it has been implemented administratively around the country under all these euphemisms such as green growth, sustainable development, eco this, green that. So we are fully under Agenda 21, and that, of course, includes education. And I spoke about in my book of all the sectors that I found Agenda 21 under, including agriculture. And we've had several executive orders in which the government controls most of the waters of the United States, controls the land, most of the land, and controls all the transportation, the resources. And don't you think for a moment that we are not under socialism when the government has so much power to shut off your electricity through all these smart meters and smart grid, and shut off your water and your natural gas? You are being controlled. Now they're in control of your health care, of our health care, which can be denied. And it's beginning to be denied to a lot of people because it is suddenly too expensive. Who would have thought that you add 30-some more million people without adding doctors and providers, and services are not going to be expensive? Obviously, a bunch of economically idiotic people. So we're being controlled with our communication, with internet, with phone. Many times I've been on radio when they cut off my landline when I was making an inconvenient point. Well, a landline shouldn't go down. It's the simplest means of communication and most reliable, and yet we get cut off. Well, that happened under communism. First of all, we didn't get a phone until I was in 12th grade, and there was only one person on the block who had a TV. Not that there was that much to watch. We only had 2 channels, and the communist president was on both of them most of the time with propaganda. So, yes, we are fully under Agenda 21, and there's really no turning back. The only thing they haven't ratified was the Law of the Seas Treaty, which the acronym is LOST. But once that's being ratified, we will be entirely under Agenda 21,
Now,
and there's no turning back.
I always say the first thing we need to try to fix a problem. First of all, we must understand and admit that we have a problem. And the best way to do it is to be with knowledge. Sometimes we can just scratch the surface of these very important and wide topics. I mean, there's so much information. I invite everybody who's serious about to understand, first of all, what we're talking about. Go to Amazon or any website, of course, ileanajohnson.com. But there is on Amazon a link, a beautiful copy of UN Agenda 21, Environmental Piracy, okay, by Dr. Ileana Johnson. For just $13, you should buy at least a couple copies, one for yourself and your family, and one I call as a loaner. Loan it, give it around. Give it to your local politician, to your local. I bought a couple books myself about Agenda 21. I gave it to Mojave County, at least to some of the supervisors. And we need to inform each other, number one, because the way this evil can penetrate in our community is if we are not aware. They will come, under some sort of a sustainable development, something feel good, do good. After all, it's for just the environment. And then when you understand it, it's just a wolf dressed as a little sheep, but it's a wolf. And once he's in, it's going to be very hard to kick him out. So we can still stop him in our local government. Now, what do you think about what's going to happen to America? Because, you have been living here 30 years. You see many changes, like I've been here witnessing, even I've been just 18 years almost. What do you think? How can we stop all this communism in our country? How can we do it?
Well, I'm not sure it can be entirely stopped, but we can make great strides if we just go into our public schools. The parents have become totally absent from their children's lives when it comes to schooling. They are not going to their public schools to see what their children are being taught. All of this that is happening in the country is the result of children being indoctrinated into communism, into this romantic vision of communism. And one of the more aggressive ways they're being taught is through Common Core, which is basically collectivization, education, and indoctrination into Islam. Parents need to go to their children's teachers and administrators to demand that their children not be taught about communism and collectivism. They should be taught real American history, American pride, taught about American exceptionalism, because most of the civilization that was created on this planet has been created by Christian men who believed in God and who took pride in their history and in their culture and where they came from. All their children are being taught now is about white privilege, racism, bigotry, perverse sexuality, and other things that I cannot even mention on air. And the parents need to take responsibility of their children's education, because they have their children for 8 hours a day, every day. And that's why we have these millennials who have no allegiance to their country, who are out in the streets screaming and demonstrating utter ridiculous things, demanding irrational things, that there's not a smidgen of thought in their brains, of logical thought.
This is exactly why they have a long term. It didn't start today. The beginning of the century, pretty much. I had another guest, Alex Newman, writer for the New American, with his new book, just exposing how this education system, this public education system, is being taken over by the same founders of the communists, pretty much, the international bankers, because they want to create a new generation of first of all, brainwash people that they just follow orders, and they can pretty much mold them as a new cadres of militants, Bolsheviks, because they need these numbers. They start to try to brainwash us. We are a democracy. How many presidents the last 30 years said we are a democracy? We must spread democracy. This is the biggest blasphemy our founding fathers ever said, and that's why it's so dangerous, the word democracy, because it means the dissolution of the principle of the individual. In a republic, I don't care if 99.9% of the people want to vote to take my property. You will not take my property. You will not take my individual rights. You know, that's why democracy is dangerous, because it's pretty much the first step, the pre-step before complete control of the destruction of the individual. We are a constitutional republic. We have individual rights that no mob, no 51% can take. Let me give you an example. Tomorrow, let's say 51% of the American people said that I cannot have no more guns. Guess what? The gun is here, and you are not going to take it. You can vote 99%. I don't care. You got to kill me to get my gun. As simple as that. This is a republic, okay? And my point is this for any other thing. It's not just for guns. Could be for your property. Could be for the right to find what type of religion you want to have. So that's why we are so in danger now. They are brainwashing these new generations, and there will be the new leaders, there will be the new voters, and that's why they want illegal so bad. They want these people from these third world countries that they are being used to live under socialism. They will give them food, they will give them what the government normally does under communism, the basics, and they will be the new loyalists. They will pretty much try to destroy, first at the polls, they will destroy America. And we're already losing the numbers at the polls. We know that. Ileana, I want to give you the floor. I talk too much. Tell me whatever you want to say, please.
Well, look around you. The distinction between town and country is being blurred. They are socially re-engineering or distributing the population over the country. But unfortunately, they're not doing it with Americans like they did in Romania with Romanians. They're bringing all these cultures, Muslims, South Americans, that hate our culture. They're not the same religion that we are. They're not Christians, and they're not here to integrate into this society. This is the difference between the immigrants of the turn of the century and the immigrants of today. The immigrants of today, they're ignorant, illiterate. Maybe they were then too, but then they wanted to integrate into America. They wanted to become Americans. They learned English. There was no welfare system. They worked hard. These that come now, they just come here to receive welfare, to build these little enclaves of foreigners, of their culture that they escaped from. And these people are going to vote loyalist Democrat for the rest of their lives. And that is the idea. They want to fundamentally alter our population composition where nobody has any allegiance to our borders, to our culture, to our language, and everything is being translated in 60, 70 different languages, the poll, the books, what have you. And these people are already starting making demands about their foods from their country, about their customs. They want to institute Sharia law in our country, and nobody is doing anything about it. Everybody is rolling backwards to please them, and I don't understand that. Why can you not accept immigrants that help make America better, that help Americans live better? Immigration was not made to benefit these people economically from these poor countries. It was made to benefit the American people, the American citizens.
Ileana,
and
this
that
is
is not happening.
What I call is the fifth column. They need help from outside. That's why they want workers from around the world to take over this republic and create a new communist dictatorship. Now, I need to go because I need to make a phone call. I want to join this morning the Communist Party USA. I will call the national office in New York. I don't want to call them now before they close, because I want to say that I'm a repentant capitalist and I want to join the Communist Party. So I already bought my hat. If you go on my Facebook, you can see my little KGB hat. And so I need to join because I understand that this is the new trend. And I've been sarcastic here. But let me have a little fun with these bastards, because at this point, we still have freedom of speech here. I like to call them and see if they accept me as a new member of the Communist Party. So, but meanwhile, I want to thank you. I want you please remind everybody your website and how people can purchase your books.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. My website is ileanajohnson.com, ILEANA Johnson.com. I have a blog, RomanianConservative.com, blogspot.com. And my 4 books are available at Amazon in paperback and Kindle. The first one is Echoes of Communism. The second one is Liberty on Life Support. The third one is UN Agenda 21, which has been on the bestseller list at Amazon for about 2.5 years. And the most recent one is Communism 2.0, 25 years later.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ileana. It's been my pleasure, my honor to have met you. And please, let's be in touch, okay?
Same here, Gianluca. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, guys, you're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna. And now let me make this beautiful call to this American Communist Party. Hopefully they love me because I want to repent. I used to be a capitalist pig. I did not vote for Obama. Now I will do it right. Let's see if they answer to me. This is the 212-989-4994. I don't think they work. I'm not surprised. Communist Party.
Thank you for calling the Communist Party, USA. If you know your party's extension, please press 1. For our company directory, please press 2. For media inquiries or interviews, please press 3. For the Young Communist League, please press 4. To leave a message, please press 5.
3.
The party you have called is not available. Please leave a message after the tone. When you have finished, press pound for further options, or hang up to send.
Hello? Okay. Okay, let me call another office. This Communist Party in Arizona, maybe they can help me out, okay? Because in the one on the East Coast, they are pretty much not working. Okay, let me call the Communist Party in Tucson, Arizona. 520-235-0694. They don't work.
Two 0-2-3-5-0-6-9-4 is not available.
Hello? My name is Luca Zanna, and I wanted to join the Communist Party in Arizona. I am repented capitalist pig, and I apologize immensely. I want to vote for Obama, and I know he's going to run again, hopefully next election. And please, how can I join and repent my sin? Please. And I would like to have somebody on my radio show, Love, Guns, and Freedom, so we can talk how communism is great for our freedoms, for our everything, for our souls. Well, I understand, we don't have a soul. We are atheists, I guess. All right, hope somebody can call me back. Thank you. And I love Mao Zedong. I love Obama. Ciao, ciao. I mean, what the heck? I called 2 different offices, one in New York and the one in Tucson, Arizona. Nobody answers. These communists, they got it pretty good, man. They don't like to work. Great. I will try again next time. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna. Don't go away. Ready for hour number 2. I'm going to break now some Obama's laws, the new laws.
You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna on United States.fm network.